Hello, welcome to the top 10 China news for today. And number one news is Iran's missile program and China's shipment. So it looks like Iran is wrapping up its missile program with help from China. A large shipment of a Chinese-made chemical, sodium perchlorate, has just arrived in Iran. And experts believe that this chemical is a key ingredient in fuel for Iran's missile system. And this shipment, which weighs a massive 1,000 tons, was delivered by a cargo ship that anchored off the coast of Bandar Abbas in Iran. It seems like Iran and China are continuing their close military ties, which is raising a lot of eyebrow internationally. Number two news is Trump's Air Force picks a US-China space race. Space might be the next frontier for the competition between the US and China. The US President Donald Trump has made it very clear that he wants to work on strengthening the space operation, especially as tensions with China continue to grow. Trump has nominated Troy Malik to head the US Air Force, a move that shows how serious the US is about putting a greater focus on space. China, meanwhile, is already heavily invested in space tech. So it's no surprise that this race is heating up, with both countries eyeing the stars. And number three news is China's energy strategy and Russia's pipeline project. China is shaking up its energy strategy, especially when it comes to the power of Serbia. The project is facing delays, but instead of putting all its eggs in one basket, China has decided to diversify its energy imports. This shift helps China hedge its bet, reducing reliances on any single energy markets. As a result, China is turning to other energy sources and reinforcing its energy security for the future, particularly with the relationship with Russia is being reevaluated. And number four news is Beijing's reaction to Taiwan's DeepSeek ban. So China is pretty upset about Taiwan's decisions to ban DeepSeek, an artificial intelligence platform that we all know, from being used in government and educational sectors. So Taiwan says it's a security concern, but Beijing calls it an overreaction, accusing Taiwan of creating unnecessary tension with China. So Chinese government thinks Taiwan is using this as an excuse to distance itself from China, especially as the two sides has had rocky relationship ever since when the technology and the policy starts. Number five news is Beijing approves construction for the first South China Sea deep sea water space station. So China is making some big moves with deep sea with the approval of the first deep water space station in the South China Sea. So this will be a state-of-the-art research facility. It's about like 2,000 meters underwater, focused on studying ecosystems in the sea depth. And the research station will not only enhance China's knowledge of the marine life, but also give it a stronger geopolitical pressure in the resource-rich South China Sea, which has been the subject of many territorial disputes in the recent years. And number six news is China's smartphone brands embraces DeepSeek's AI model. So the race for artificial intelligence is on, and in China is playing out the smartphone world. Major Chinese smartphone brands, including Huawei and Vivo, are turning into DeepSeek's AI model to power their devices. And this is a big win for DeepSeek, which has become a leading AI provider for Android phones in China. Meanwhile, Apple is also partnering with Alibaba to integrate AI into its iPhones. So it shows how much both local and international brands are pushing the boundaries of technology to keep up with the AI innovation. And number seven news is South China Sea. China has slammed Australian military plane for intruding its airspace. So tension between China and Australia are escalating in the South China Sea, with both nations accusing each other of military missteps. The latest incident involved an Australian military plane, which China says has intruded into its aerospace. Meanwhile, Australia claims that a Chinese fighter jet performed unsafe maneuvers near its plane. So the back and forth highlights and the high-stakes military activities happening in the South China Sea, a region already known for complex and territorial disputes. South China Sea has always been an issue. So number 8 news is ahead of Indian PM Modi's meetings with Trump, New Delhi threats over possible US-China deals. So as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi heads to Washington to talk with President Donald Trump, there is some unease with New Delhi. India is keen to secure a trade deal with the US, but analysts are concerned about the possibility of the US making a great deal with China, surprisingly, which could put India in a disadvantage. While India is confident about the trade talks, there's a lot of uncertainty about how a US and China agreement might impact its regional interests, especially in relation with China's growing influence. And number 9 news is Trump says he wants to work with Russia and China on limiting nuclear arms. So US President Donald Trump has expressed a desire to work with Russia and China to curb the nuclear arms race. He mentioned that he plans to start discussion with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping about putting on their nuclear arsenals. The idea is to reduce the nuclear stockpiles of all 3 nations and possibly even expand the talks into a trilateral agreement. So it's a move that could have significant global implications, especially given the current state of international relations, because we don't want a World War III. And number 10 news is BRICS summits to tackle AI governance on global health and financial reforms. So the BRIC nation, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are gearing up for their next summit with big topics on the agenda. And this year, Brazil, which is chairing the summit, wants to focus on important global issues like artificial intelligence governance, global health, and financial reforms. And the goal is to push for a more inclusive and ethical global policies, especially when it comes to AI, rather than letting big corporations control the future of technology. Brazil is advocating for a fairer distribution of resources, for greater cooperations across the BRICS countries. And that's the news for today, and I wish you guys a happy Valentine. Bye-bye.